Hey everyone, my name is Ryan Sacksteder, and I just wanted to take some time and share with you a little of my story. So, one word I would use to describe my life before coming into a true relationship with God would be performance. I was fortunate enough to grow up in a Christian family with parents and even grandparents and great grandparents who loved God. And so, towards the beginning of my teenage years, I decided to accept Christ into my life. But at that point, I really didn't understand what it meant to have a relationship with God. And so performance just kind of crept up in a number of areas in my life. The first was my relationship with my parents. I knew my parents would love me regardless of how my life played out, but I just really wanted to please them and be sure that I was making the right decisions. And so I just really sought to perform well in this way. Performance was also a huge part of my relationship with peers, especially in high school. I really tried to use academics and athletics and just the way I acted to kind of build up this identity of the person I wanted to be, and just a way of my peers accepting me. And then performance was, lastly, a huge part of my relationship with God at the time. I looked at that relationship as really more of an obligation and a set of rules that I needed to fulfill, and kind of like a checklist. I needed to go to church each week, and I needed to read my Bible and do all these things to gain God's acceptance. And so as a result, in times of sin and just making mistakes, I really experienced a lot of disappointment and just shame and guilt, and thinking that I'd really messed up and God wouldn't accept me. But transitioning to college, I became a part of a community of believers called Crew. And especially over the last couple years, through Crew, just experienced a lot of growth and just gaining a better understanding of what my relationship with Christ should look like. And so God just really met me with this illustration of a triangle at that time, where the corners of the triangle are labeled God, identity, and obedience. And so at that time, I knew who God was, and I had this idea of rules and religion and things I needed to do to be obedient and to perform well in God's eyes, to gain this identity and acceptance from God. But I didn't realize that the triangle was supposed to go the other way around. And so a second word I would use to describe my life at this point would be acceptance. I came to the realization that God, because of his grace and just the gift of him giving his son to die on the cross for my sins, that I'd been gifted this identity and this acceptance from God. And that obedience was really just a way of me living out that identity and just loving God and loving other people. And so, sin is definitely something I still struggle with. I even struggle with kind of going back to this performance-based mentality, but God just really transformed my view of what a relationship with him looks like, and just this idea that his love for me is not dependent on the choices I make, but is just completely based off my acceptance of him and just who I am. So this just a little bit of my story. If you have any comments or questions, I'd love to address those. And I just wanted to thank you really much for listening. Have a good day.